Some people wake up to alarms, others wake up to anxiety. That creeping sense that something's off, that no matter how hard you try to plan, stay ahead, stay sane, something's always shifting underneath you. Jobs disappear overnight. One piece of news sends the market spiraling. Friendships change, people ghost. And just when you think life is finally steady, it throws you another curveball. It's exhausting, right? But here's the wild truth. The Stoics believed this instability isn't the exception, it's the rule. And not only that, it's the exact condition where your deepest strength is forged. You don't need a perfectly calm life to feel calm. You don't need a predictable world to feel grounded. You just need the right tools, the right mindset. And that's exactly what Stoicism has been offering for over 2,000 years. It's not about pretending life is easy. It's about becoming someone who's ready for anything. In this video, we're diving into 9 Stoic tips that will help you thrive, not just survive, in this unstable world. If life's been testing you lately, you're not broken. You're being built. If these conversations speak to something real in you, something grounded in truth, philosophy, and inner growth, consider subscribing. It's a small gesture, but it helps us reach more minds like yours, and it quietly signals that you're walking this path with intention. 1. Embrace the fire. Most people spend their lives trying to outrun discomfort. They chase stability like it's some promised land, believing if they work hard enough, control enough, plan enough, they'll finally reach that perfect day when nothing goes wrong. But life doesn't work like that. It moves, it shifts, it surprises. Just when you think you've got things figured out, something changes. And that's not a glitch in the system. That is the system. The Stoics didn't just accept this, they leaned into it. They understood that the nature of life is flux. Change is not the enemy, it's the very condition for growth. The idea they held close was called amor fati, which means love of fate. Not just tolerate your fate, not just put on a brave face, but love it. Why? Because the things we don't choose often shape us in the most powerful ways. Like the lodgepole pine tree that only releases its seeds after a wildfire, there are parts of your character, your courage, your clarity, your grit, that only emerge when you're under pressure. Fire doesn't just destroy, it reveals, it refines. You lose a job? It might feel like failure, but maybe that space is what finally forces you to pursue what you really want. Maybe you stop settling, you get rejected, it stings. But maybe that person wasn't meant to walk the next mile of your journey. Maybe life is editing your path for you, removing what doesn't belong. What if the setback isn't punishment, but precision? Stoicism teaches that we don't control what happens to us, but we do control what we make of it. Marcus Aurelius said, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." That's what you are, a fire. Everything that hits you, loss, doubt, delay, is fuel for your evolution. It's training, it's preparation, but only if you let it be. You're not defined by the event, you're defined by your response. The Stoics practiced this mindset daily. They journaled through storms. They visualized loss before it came, not to be morbid, but to prepare their hearts. Because the more you expect life to flow in one smooth direction, the more fragile you become. Aristotle believed that the highest human good, eudaimonia, was not pleasure or success, but excellence of character developed through struggle and right action. In other words, the good life is not the easy life, it's the earned life. That means you've got to stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What is this building in me? Is it patience? Is it humility? Is it power I didn't know I had?" Plato reminded us that the measure of a person isn't how they act in moments of comfort, but in moments of challenge. This is your moment, and when it comes, don't resist it. Breathe into it, trust it, welcome it, let it teach you, let it train you. So the next time life slams a door or throws you off your routine, don't spiral, don't fight it. Just pause and say, "This is training. Let's go." That's not denial, that's discipline, that's stoicism in motion. 2. Use chaos as fuel. Sometimes life throws you into a situation that doesn't make sense. Everything's spinning, nothing's working the way it used to, and you're standing there wondering, why is this happening now? It's unsettling, frustrating, even scary. But here's the flip side. These moments are often the exact turning points that shape who you become. Not in spite of the chaos, but because of it. You don't get transformation in comfort. You get it when the ground beneath you shifts, and you're forced to either break or build something new. Every great story has a moment of breakdown, that scene where everything falls apart and you think the hero might not make it. But it's in that fall where the real transformation begins. Think of your own life. Your biggest growth didn't happen when things were easy. It happened when you lost the job, the plan failed, the relationship ended, or the door slammed shut. As the Stoics would say, what stands in the way becomes the way. That obstacle, it's not blocking your path. It is the path. Disruption isn't your enemy, it's your catalyst. In fact, the more you resist it, the more it drags you. But if you meet it with awareness and courage, it becomes fuel. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That wasn't just theory for him. He faced wars, plagues, and betrayal, and still he ruled with wisdom and patience. That's what makes Stoicism so powerful. It's not about avoiding the fire, but learning how to use it. Carl Jung echoed something similar when he said, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order." That's the mindset shift. Instead of panicking when things break down, you start looking for the deeper pattern, the hidden gift. What new skill is this forcing me to learn? What part of me is being called forward? What's trying to emerge through the mess? Aristotle believed that excellence was built through repeated action, especially in difficult times. He said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. So when systems collapse or structure disappears, it's not the end, it's an invitation to rebuild better, to get creative, to take responsibility for your response, your focus, your next move. Socrates, too, warned against clinging to comfort. He believed the unexamined life wasn't worth living, and disruption forces examination. It asks you, what really matters? What's worth holding on to? What's just habit or fear disguised as tradition? So the next time you feel like everything's slipping out of place, don't just react, reflect. Don't just survive, strategize. Ask yourself, how can I use this chaos to evolve? That one question turns confusion into clarity. It puts the power back in your hands. And that right there is the mark of a Stoic mind in action. 3. Remember, you're not the first. There are days when it feels like the weight you're carrying is yours alone, like no one really gets it, how tired you are, how heavy it feels, how hard you're trying to hold everything together while life keeps throwing curveballs. Maybe you've been silent about it. Maybe you've smiled when you wanted to scream. That feeling? It's isolating. But here's something you might not have heard enough. What you're going through has been felt before. Not in the exact same way, but close enough. The pain, the pressure, the uncertainty, it's all part of the human condition. The Stoics didn't have it easier. In fact, they lived through some of the most chaotic times in human history. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's greatest voices, led during a deadly plague that killed millions. He buried children, fought wars, dealt with betrayal, and governed a crumbling empire. And yet, through all of it, he found time to write meditations about keeping calm, staying virtuous, and holding on to inner peace. That wasn't weakness, that was the ultimate display of strength. Not because he never struggled, but because he chose how to respond to it. Carl Jung said, "Loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important." And what Stoicism does, what it gives us, is the language to name our struggles and the perspective to rise above them. When you read the words of people like Seneca or Epictetus, you start to realize this isn't just your fight. You're not defective for feeling overwhelmed. You're not alone. You're walking a path that's been walked by many before you, and they made it through. Socrates once said, "He who is not contented with what he has would not be contented with what he would like to have." The struggle to find peace isn't about eliminating pain. It's about changing our relationship to it. Stoicism doesn't promise comfort, it promises clarity. It doesn't say, "You'll never suffer." It says, "When suffering comes, here's how you meet it with strength." And that's why history matters. Not to look back and say, "They had it worse," but to remind yourself, they made it through. And so will you. Every scar you carry is proof of survival. Every time you thought you were at the edge but didn't fall off, you built muscle, inner muscle, psychological muscle. You are here, right now, which means you've already survived more than you give yourself credit for. Plato believed that real learning happens through difficulty, that it's in moments of discomfort where we find wisdom. That's not just a lesson for philosophy class, that's life. So the next time you feel like screaming, collapsing, or giving in, remember this. You're not breaking, you're becoming. You're part of a long line of people who faced storms and stood tall. Not because they were superhuman, but because they chose resilience. So when life hits hard, don't say, "Why me?" Say, "I'm built for this. I come from a long line of survivors," because you do, and you are. 4. Ride the wave. There's a strange kind of comfort we chase in trying to make things stay the same. We want the job to stay stable, the relationships to stay easy, our routines to stay familiar. But life doesn't work on our schedule. It doesn't sign contracts. It doesn't promise predictability. And the more we try to lock everything down, to grip too tightly to how things were, the more we suffer when they inevitably shift. It's like trying to hold on to water. The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. The Stoics understood this deeply. They weren't just stoic in the sense of being emotionless. They were wise enough to study the natural world and realize change isn't the enemy. It's the pattern. It's the rhythm. And the wise person doesn't resist the rhythm. They learn how to move with it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Observe constantly that all things take place by change." He didn't write this from a peaceful hilltop retreat. He wrote it from within the storm of war, plague, and political betrayal. That tells you something. He wasn't just quoting poetry, he was giving us a survival manual. Carl Jung, looking at the human psyche centuries later, echoed the same truth when he said, "What you resist persists." That internal fight, trying to make life hold still, is what creates stress, not the actual change itself. Adaptability in this way isn't weakness, it's not surrender, it's strategy, it's self-respect. When we allow life to evolve and give ourselves permission to evolve with it, we gain power, not by control, but by response. Queen Elizabeth II once said, It has always been easy to hate and destroy. To build and to cherish is much more difficult. Her reign lasted 70 years not because she avoided change, but because she adapted through it. From handwritten letters to digital diplomacy, from empire to service. She didn't cling to what was, she adjusted to what is, again and again. And in doing so, she remained relevant, she remained steady, she remained effective. Aristotle believed that virtue lies in finding the mean, the balance between extremes. When you're too rigid, you become brittle. When you're too loose, you drift. But flexibility, the kind rooted in values, not fear, is the middle path. It allows you to stay grounded while still being able to move. Socrates, the original question asker, might challenge us with something like this. Are you holding on to stability, or are you holding on to a story that's no longer true? That's a question worth sitting with. Because sometimes what we think is security is just a familiar cage. And life, real, expansive life, begins the moment you stop clinging. So ask yourself honestly, where am I holding on too tightly? What am I afraid will happen if I loosen my grip just a little? Because maybe, just maybe, your next level begins not with more control, but with more trust. Flow, don't force. That's the Stoic way. 5. Control the meaning, not the event. Life has a funny way of ignoring your schedule. Just when things seem stable, something breaks. A deal falls through. Someone you trusted walks away. Your health, your finances, your plans, suddenly none of them are cooperating. And in that moment, your brain wants to scream, "This isn't fair." But what if fairness was never the point? What if the most powerful thing you could do wasn't to wish it hadn't happened, but to decide what it means now that it has? The Stoics weren't interested in fantasy. They dealt with reality, the raw, uncomfortable, unpredictable kind. Epictetus said, "It's not things that upset us, it's our judgments about things." You don't control whether the storm hits, but you decide how you respond to the rain. That's the one space you own. That's the place where your freedom lives. Carl Jung believed the same thing when he wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." That hits deep, because life will happen to you whether you're ready or not. But what you become, how you interpret the pain, how you rise from it, that part is yours. That part no one can take. And it doesn't have to be something dramatic. Even small things can rattle you. Someone's tone, a missed opportunity, that sinking feeling when plans shift and you weren't ready. But even in those moments, you've got a decision to make. You can spiral into blame, bitterness, regret, or you can pause and ask a better question. What's the lesson here? What's the opportunity inside this mess? Plato once said, "Reality is created by the mind. We can change our reality by changing our mind." That's not some fluffy self-help mantra. That's ancient wisdom backed by modern psychology. Your interpretation is everything. A failed relationship. It could be a redirection toward healing, losing a job. It might be the freedom you didn't know you needed to build something that's actually yours. Even Aristotle saw the power of reflection in action. He believed that excellence wasn't a one-time decision. It was a habit, something you cultivate moment by moment, especially in difficult times. So instead of crumbling, you learn. Instead of closing, you open. That's what Stoicism teaches us, not to avoid the blow, but to absorb it, reflect on it, and turn it into something useful. Socrates, when facing death, didn't beg or panic. He asked questions. He examined the meaning. That's the blueprint. Not to control life, but to engage with it. Intentionally, courageously. So next time life doesn't go your way, and let's be honest, that could be today, don't rush to label it as bad. Step back, breathe, and ask yourself, what does this moment want to teach me? What part of me is being called to grow? Because inside every shake-up is a seed of strength, and the story you choose to tell yourself, that's the real power. That's what changes everything. 6. Journal like your sanity depends on it. There's something strangely powerful about writing things down, not typing, not tweeting, actually putting pen to paper and dragging your thoughts into the physical world. When your mind is racing, looping, second-guessing, writing slows it all down. It's like taking a flashlight into a dark room. Suddenly, the shadows shrink. The noise softens, and what felt overwhelming begins to make sense. The Stoics knew this. Long before there were therapists or life coaches or voice notes, there were journals. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who ruled during pandemics, wars, and betrayal, didn't write his meditations to publish. He wrote them to stay sane, to stay still. His journal was a mirror, a conversation with his future self. And that's the beauty of it. It wasn't performance. It was practice. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's what journaling does. It makes the unconscious conscious. It turns vague feelings into clear words. You think you're just scribbling in a notebook, but what you're really doing is unpacking your mind, untangling the wires. Instead of letting your thoughts control you, you start to control them. And let's be honest, most of us spend more time overthinking than actually thinking. We worry. We repeat conversations in our heads. We rehearse disasters that haven't even happened. Socrates believed that the unexamined life is not worth living. That doesn't mean we need to overanalyze every detail, but it does mean we should check in, ask questions, get curious about our inner world, instead of assuming every thought we have is true. Aristotle taught that knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom, but that kind of knowing doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you pause, slow down, and reflect. Even 5 minutes a day can change how you respond to stress, how you interpret setbacks, and how you see yourself. You don't need a fancy leather notebook or perfect handwriting. Just a few quiet minutes and some honesty. What are you really feeling right now? What's pulling your attention? What are you afraid of that you haven't said out loud? When you write it, you name it. And when you name it, you can work with it. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. So tonight, before bed, don't scroll. Don't numb. Don't distract. Just sit with yourself for a second. Write down the 3 biggest things on your mind. Then ask yourself a simple question. Are these facts or fears? You might be surprised how much of what's been weighing on you starts to feel lighter the moment you see it clearly. Journaling isn't just about expression, it's about clarity. And clarity is freedom. That's how the Stoics trained their minds. Quietly, consistently, one honest page at a time. 7. Zoom out and get perspective. Ever notice how the smallest things feel like the end of the world when you're too close to them? A rude text, a missed deadline, a weird silence in a conversation. When you're in it, it feels huge, consuming, like there's no space to breathe or think clearly. But pull back just a little, zoom out, and suddenly everything shifts. You get perspective. The problem shrinks. Your mind clears. And that emotional storm? It passes, just like all the others did. That's not just a nice trick. It's a mindset, a Stoic mindset. The Stoics practiced this kind of zooming out every day. Marcus Aurelius, for example, wrote about taking the view of the whole. Not just your little world, but all of nature, all of time. He said, Look at things as they are, peeling away the surface. When we obsess over the surface, our irritation, our fear, our disappointment, we forget how much we've already survived. Zooming out reminds us that this too will pass. Carl Jung touched on this when he said, "The pendulum of the mind swings between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong. What feels overwhelming now might feel silly in a week, or 5 years, or even tomorrow morning. But when we zoom in too tight, when we obsess over every little detail, we lose the bigger picture. We confuse emotion with truth, urgency with importance. Think about how a pilot sees a city, or how an astronaut sees Earth. It changes things, doesn't it? Plato encouraged people to rise above the cave, above the illusions, above the shadows, and see things as they really are, not as they seem in the heat of the moment. And when we do that, when we mentally rise up above our problems, we reconnect with something deeper, something steadier. Socrates believed that wisdom begins in wonder, and wonder, real wonder, doesn't live in your to-do list. It doesn't live in your phone. It lives in that moment when you look at the sky and realize you're part of something massive, something ancient. You're not the first person to feel anxious. You won't be the last. And that thing you're stressing about, it's one line in a chapter that hasn't finished being written yet. Even Aristotle believed that part of the good life came from contemplation, from stepping back and thinking deeply about what really matters. And that's what zooming out gives you, the ability to see clearly, to not get swept up in every little thing, to hold your peace even when life feels chaotic. So when your chest is tight, your mind is cluttered, and it feels like everything's closing in, step outside, literally, if you can. Look up at the sky, take a deep breath. Remind yourself, you are not the problem. You are the awareness observing it. You're bigger than this moment, stronger than the feeling, and like every other storm you've weathered, this one will pass too. Keep the bigger picture in view. That's where the calm lives. That's where you find your power. 8. Focus on what's in your control. It's wild how fast your peace can vanish. One email, one headline, one offhand comment from someone who didn't even mean anything by it. Suddenly, you're spiraling, thinking 10 steps ahead, imagining worst-case scenarios, questioning your worth, your plan, your entire path. It happens to all of us. But the question isn't whether chaos shows up. The question is, what do you do when it does? The Stoics had a razor-sharp answer to that. Control what you can. Let go of what you can't. It sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things to practice, especially in a world that constantly tries to pull your focus outward. The news, other people's opinions, unpredictable events, they will always be out there. The Stoics didn't deny that. They just refused to give those things power over their inner world. Epictetus put it perfectly, some things are up to us and some things are not. That one sentence is a life philosophy. Your thoughts, your choices, your responses, those are up to you. The outcome, not always. The timing, rarely. But how you carry yourself in the storm, that's yours. That's your arena. And once you realize that, something shifts. You stop giving your energy away to things that were never yours to hold. Carl Jung once said, "Freedom stretches only as far as the limits of our consciousness." And that's why awareness matters so much. Most people go through their day reacting, triggered by this, frustrated by that, blaming the world for how they feel. But the Stoics were different. They trained themselves to pause, to ask the question that changes everything. Is this in my control? If the answer is no, drop it. If the answer is yes, do something about it. Socrates believed that self-mastery was the foundation of a good life. He said, "Let him who would move the world first move himself." And that's the work, right? Not trying to fix everything out there, but starting with what's in here. Your focus, your breath, your behavior. That's where peace lives. Not in getting everything to go your way, but in knowing you'll handle it well when it doesn't. Aristotle taught that virtue is a habit formed by doing the right thing over and over again, especially when it's hard. So every time you stop yourself from lashing out, every time you choose patience instead of panic, every time you redirect your attention to what you can influence, you're shaping the kind of person you become. That's power, quiet, steady, self-built power. So next time your brain starts running wild, stop, breathe, ask yourself, is this in my control? If it's not, release it. If it is, act on it. That's not weakness, that's wisdom, that's stoicism. And in a world full of noise, that kind of clarity is a superpower. 9. Be the emerald. There are times when the world feels too loud, too fast, too unpredictable. You wake up with a plan, and by midday, life has rewritten your entire script. Maybe someone disappoints you, maybe something unexpected blindsides you, or maybe it's not one big event, just the daily pressure, the background noise that slowly chips away at your peace. And in those moments, it's easy to forget who you are. It's easy to start bending to the storm. But the Stoics had a different approach. They didn't try to control the storm. They trained themselves to be still within it. One of the most powerful images from Stoic writings is this: be like the emerald, not glass, not something fragile, something solid, something with depth and clarity. The emerald doesn't argue with the darkness around it, it just keeps shining. That's the mindset. That's the mission. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "No role is so well suited to philosophy as the one you happen to be in right now." That means whatever life is throwing at you, this exact moment, messy as it may be, is your arena for growth. You don't need ideal conditions to be your best self. You just need to decide not to fold under pressure, to stay true, not perfect, just steady. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and you can't do that if you're constantly shifting based on what the world expects." That doesn't mean you ignore feedback or stop learning. It means you stop abandoning yourself every time something hard happens. Life will test your patience. People will misunderstand you. Circumstances will shake your plans. But your identity, your core, doesn't have to go with them. Plato believed that the soul has a natural order, and our work in life, he said, is to bring the parts of ourselves, reason, emotion, and desire, into harmony. That kind of harmony doesn't come from outside approval. It comes from inner alignment, from knowing your values, your boundaries, your worth, and sticking to them when it's hardest. Socrates, too, taught that the key to strength is not brute force, but clarity of purpose. When you know your mission, distractions lose their grip. You stop reacting to everything, and you start responding from a place of awareness. Aristotle reminded us that character is revealed in action, especially under pressure. And that's the real test, isn't it? Not how you behave when life's easy, but who you become when life gets complicated, when things fall apart, when no one's watching. So when life gets loud, when people don't get you, when the world seems out of sync, pause, breathe, and whisper to yourself, "I am still me. I don't fold, I don't shake, I shine," because at the end of the day, your job isn't to control the noise. Your job is to remain who you are, calm, clear, and grounded. That's stoicism. That's strength. That's your light. The world won't always make sense. People will shift. Plans will break. But the one thing you can return to, the one place that stays solid, is you. Calm in the storm, steady in the chaos, clear in the noise. That's what stoicism gives you. Not control over life, but control over yourself. If this message spoke to something in you, there's another video waiting for you right here, just as powerful, just as grounded. Thank you for being a part of Stoic Journal.